All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our channel is dedicated to helping you get better at Bannerlord through the use of advanced field command and tactics, and we are going to continue to show you some of the changes that come with the Beta 1.32 update. In today's episode, we're going to focus heavily on the Sturgians since they have some of the most changes out of this beta patch. Their infantry was significantly altered, some of their cavalry was improved, and the Variag veteran is now on horse. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Now for this first example, we're just going to set a baseline of how difficult this scenario is by letting the sergeants fight it out here. I'm also going to look at what the AI does as far as defensive structures and see if we can learn anything from that. The Sturgians theoretically have a really good defensive kingdom because they have some of the best armor of all the troops in the game. And so a defensive approach is warranted. Also, they now have two-handed shock troops that have hammers that should, in theory, do really well against this heavy cavalry army that we're facing. Now I'm going to do a little spectacular suicide here before the battle starts. We don't have the RTS mod, so this is the best way. This is the best way for me to participate using this overhead view. Now their cavalry's coming in. I'm not sure what our Sturgian forces are doing. It looks like they're scurrying to a bake sale. There we go. They formed a circle. It's too tight though, so even though the infantry's going to probably get some kills, they actually got a lot of kills. The archers can't really shoot. And because the archers can't shoot, they're being skewered by cavalry. The circle's starting to break down. It looks like the archers are naked now. And this has quickly devolved into a slaughter. Not surprisingly, the AI can't beat itself, outnumbered 20%. It's never going to win this battle, and neither will you unless you use some tactics. Now, knowing the strengths of the Sturgians, we're going to go into our attempt here with a couple changes. First, we're going to have attacking cavalry, and it may surprise you, but it's going to be Jav Cav. We're going to use our Drudziniks, our armored cavalry, in defensive lines in a circle. I think we'll do a circle with a Jav Cav division towards the rear. Jav Cav are units that can throw javelins from a horse, right? These guys are very powerful on Bannerlord. They're very accurate. And so we want to use our defensive guys here to protect our infantry, not our archers, protect our infantry, and then we'll try to get our archers off to the side. There's two reasons we want our archers off to the side. First, we can protect them by bringing up the other Cav division if they come towards our archers. Second, the enemy's going to zerg the circle because the AI generally tends to attack where the troops are packed most thickly. We're going to bait them to attack the circle. I'm having some difficulties here. Come on, baby. There we go. We got 110 infantry within the circle. Now notice how much room is in the circle. That's important too. I want the enemy stuck in that circle. I want all their cavalry to charge that. Once they're in there, we can commence to murder. Now the second division just on the side like that, we'll look at their angles here. Good. I want them to be able to shoot down into the circle as the enemy attacks our ranks of troops here. Now again, if they angle towards our archers, we'll simply bring the 4th Corps up to counter them. The other reason the archers are over here are for horse archers. Horse archers always circle from your left to your right, right? They try to go behind you. This is simply cutting them off. We have more archers than they have horse archers. They have 51 archers here. Just going to move our formations up just a bit. The other rule of thumb too is that the enemy will attack whatever units are closest to it, right? So in this case, I want to make sure that circle is out in front like some nice bait for the enemy. Now this is going to be a mostly static attack. We're going to counterattack with infantry. Our archers here don't need any help. They're going to be able to skewer the horse archers. The horse archers are coming up. Instead of circling, they're just kind of coming like right into the face of our circle. It looks like it confused them a little bit, and now they're being flayed by our archers. If you haven't learned, in the 1.3 update, the Sturgian archers were significantly upgraded, so much so that you could argue they're probably the 3rd or even 2nd best archers in the game. They're way up the list. They're at least comparable with the best archers, and I mean the tier 5 archers in the game. Of course, they're not better than Fiends. All right, so our Jav Cav is on the other side. They're going to counterattack with the infantry when the enemy charges. We destroyed their horse archers. Their heavy cav line is coming, and we want to have our infantry charge as their cavalry charges. That way our spearmen get extra inertia damage, right? Right here, charge. All of our guys will barrel forward, counter that cav charge. Meanwhile, our Jav Cav towards the rear here gets told to charge as well. Now, the reason you're keeping your Jav Cav behind here is I don't want them shot to pieces by archers. See how they're attacking here towards the rear? They're helping our archers a little bit. They're sort of fighting with the infantry there in the circle. That's optimal. I don't want our forces going anywhere near the Imperial archers, not until later in this battle. This is fighting the enemy in detail here. Got a nice little perch just to watch this. And it's bloody, right? Of course, we're outnumbered 20%. This is not supposed to be a battle that's easily won. Our archers are a bit naked here. They're getting banged around a bit. But most of the enemy cavalry is in the circle. And so far, so good. A 2-to-1 kill ratio. We'll take that, right? Now, we're also going to start protecting our units here. I'm going to take a cav division and move it forward in a shield wall. This is one of the most powerful tactics in Bannerlord, and it's a simple one. You're basically just creating a line of heavy horse in a shield wall between all your troops that are fighting and the enemy archers. It's a pretty simple tactic, and I'll show you how effective it is. This line of Drudziniks here, Drudziniks are very heavily armored. We're just going to keep these guys out in front, and basically they're our screen between the enemy archers and the rest of our troops fighting. Now, we're having some difficulty, it looks like, with their infantry, although they just overcame it. Our archers are still working, but let's move them up, right? Our infantry's starting to move up. Let's start moving all of our troops up. In fact, this screen, as your troops move forward, keep pushing it forward until it's basically in the archers, in the enemy archers. Don't move it there immediately, just move it part of the way. Just like my shield, we're getting shot. That whole time, though, our troops are moving forward. The archers are clearing anything here in the backfield. The infantry's consolidating. And this is going to work. This is not just going to work, it's working really well. The archers are spraying everything that attacks the infantry. That cav division, 14 cavalry, and these guys are the MVP. Look at that shit. They're absorbing tons of arrows. The final push here into the enemy archers, and just shove them right into the enemy at this stage, right? They're going to suffer losses, but they are plowing the road and making sure our shock troops don't get shot. In they go. Let's see how they do. They got shot off his horse. A couple more guys died, but there's still like 6-7 cavalry there. Now our archers are on scene. These guys can be told to fire, fire. The infantry's reached their archer lines, and this battle's over, right? The enemy, it looks like they're charging. They might be routing. They're either charging or routing. Either one of those is good for us because our archers are still spraying. Mentioned it before many times on the channel, but we'll mention it here since this might be the first time you're watching a video on the channel. The Sturgian archers have some of the most ammo in the game. Take advantage of that, right? Your guys can just fire away. The Imperials here, a lot of these guys are out of ammo, and even if they had ammo, it wouldn't matter because this battle is over. So very simple tactics, I think. Sometimes we run 8 divisions on the channel. If you notice, that was only 4. The keys to that battle, making sure that our archers were well positioned, making sure that our infantry was protected from that initial cavalry charge. Your shock troops will get killed by enemy cavalry charges. And look at that Sturgian veteran bowman, a 20-to-1 kill ratio. Again, archers and Bannerlord are uber powerful. Cavalry got a big boost, and they are dangerous to archers, but archers are still king. If you can protect them, as we did here, it's a total massacre, not just a successful victory. We still have half of our troops left, outnumbered by 20%. That's obviously the kind of success you can have too in your campaign. All right, let's figure some more tactics out for you. All right, so a heavy cavalry army. Now we know with tactics, no big deal, right? The Sturgians handle that very well. Now this is the army makeup that I would suggest you use for Sturgia. About 25% infantry, 40% archers, and 35% cavalry. We'll talk more about why that is the case. And in this battle, I'll show you how to destroy infantry. Of course, this is a tactic I've been trying to push across YouTube for a couple of years now. And once people discover it, it's tactical nirvana. We are talking about a Killbox. Now, the first example here, of course, we'll run the sergeant in charge. I'll suicide quickly and do a little bit of editing here just to show you how badly we're outnumbered and disadvantaged in this battle. And then we will design a Killbox. I will show you an overhead perspective. We will do a little edited diagram for you so that you can understand it easily, and I will walk you through the paces. All right, so down we go here. We should be able now to fast forward this again. We still don't have the RTS mod updated yet because this beta is brand new. That'll be coming in the upcoming handful of weeks, but for now this will suffice. Now our army here is outnumbered by 20%, playing in a defensive manner, but the problem is that huge amount of infantry. They're actually doing okay so far. And then that infantry line hits our smaller infantry line. They get vanquished. The archers are in trouble against that many infantry, especially in that kind of a position where they're just sort of facing them, and we get exterminated. They actually did a little bit better than I expected here, but the enemy still had about 40% of its forces left. Let's turn this around and try to win the battle. In fact, we might be able to turn that around so that we have 40% of our forces left. Now we're going to use 7 divisions for this, 7 army groups, but don't be intimidated. The vast majority of the setup and movement here is done before the battle starts. So that means that you should be able to, start the video here, watch what we're doing, assign your units, pause, take your time, make sure the alignment is correct, and then start the battle, right? This is the kind of thing even a relatively new commander should be able to copy. 2nd and 3rd divisions, those are set to high tier preference. That way we have our Drudziniks playing defense. We'll show you that more in a minute. The alignment for this is effectively a bucket. We're going to make 3 different archer divisions. Preferably the 4th division would be your strongest division because they will be on our left. That benefits us because they're shooting to the side of the enemy that does not have a shield. Every troop is right-handed. They will come in with their shield on their right hand. Hence that side, with their weapon on their right hand, hence that side is vulnerable. The infantry in the middle is our bait, and we'll show you that. That's going to be one of the few divisions that moves during the battle, as is the 7th division. About half of our cavalry here is held back, kind of in reserve, but there are javelin divisions, so we're going to use them to attack. Now, I got to move up here a little bit. I want to be a little bit out in the open so we're not tucked up in the hills. It'll be harder for you guys to see unless we get moved a little closer to the enemy here. But I will show you, we'll do some sort of an overhead perspective. Again, we don't have the RTS mod, but I can use the map menu, the photo menu rather, and show you guys this from an overhead perspective. And of course, we will continue to walk you through it. The reason this works is that Drudziniks are excellent on defense, and they guard our flanks in a shield wall. The reason you want them in a shield wall is twofold. First, they're going to be attacked actually by horse archers first. I kind of forgot this part. But also by enemy heavy cavalry. The enemy almost always makes 2 cavalry wings, 1 on each side, and these wings effectively intercept them. Now we're going to deal with their horse archers mostly with archers. Archers actually do really well against horse archers as long as they're not moving, right? And what I mean by that is your archers have their feet planted. You do not want your archers, you don't want any of your troops moving against horse archers unless it's cavalry that's sent in to attack them. Standing archers actually do pretty well against horse archers. Now we're going to try to make them retreat here by using this cav division and just having them attack. This is very temporary. I told them attack over here, and the benefit is it makes the horse archers sort of freak out and try to leave, try to cycle back to their troops, and they're getting flayed on the way out because they can't shoot the direction I am right now. All horse archers shoot towards their left, not their right. So they got flayed pretty bad on the way out there. The horse archers are virtually vanquished, and we reset that cav division there. In the middle here is our infantry bait. In fact, here, let's do the photo mode. Again, we'll put up a little diagram. This infantry is mostly here to pull the enemy into the bucket. We've got 3 different divisions of archers that form the bucket. It's basically a U-shaped formation. And as the infantry moves back into that bucket, the enemy infantry will follow, walking right into the trap. These guys also will throw their javelins and stuff like that. That's another point to reiterate. The Sturgians have some really good throwing weapons now, right? Even though the tier 4 spearman has poor throwing skill, they have excellent javelins. Now let's focus on this cavalry. Here comes a devastating cavalry charge, and I didn't see a single death, right? We got a couple, 3 kills on them, but that powerful enemy cavalry charge was completely nullified by our cav lines. Over here, they got a handful of cavalry that's sort of slipping through, but they get shot to death by our scores of archers. In the back there, our Jav Cav dispatched the last few enemy forces. So here's where your movement comes into play. Their infantry will destroy our infantry, so we're going to back our infantry up right to the back of the U, right to the back of the bucket, right? Consider it reinforcing the back of the bucket. Our archers are back there shooting, and what happens is the enemy walks right into the middle of this trap, basically into the center of the bucket where they're being hit on both flanks, especially their weak flank over here by archers. The cavalry are still doing a good job because they're blocking enemy arrows. We'll talk more about that in a second. So the enemy infantry is in a shield wall now because they're trying to survive this barrage. That means they move slower. let's take advantage of that. We've got our 7th Cav. Those guys are our ranged Cav units. There's the Sturgian Variag veteran now has throwing hammers, or throwing axes. I wish they had throwing hammers. And then the brigands, of course, have upgraded javelins. So we move them in, tell them to fire away. And another huge volley of throwing weapons here as our enemies start to look like porcupines, completely stuffed with projectiles. They all have quills sticking out of every face and shield. Now the enemy's in the center, you can charge. There's one exception I'll talk about in that in a second, but let's cover the charge. The cavalry's behind them, dumping a bunch of more javelins into their back. All the archers are up here now in the enemy face. The enemy's already greatly wounded at this stage too, but you still want to really make sure that they're annihilated here, right? This is where if you have a weapon, you're in here swinging at them. Because if they rampage through here, they will kill more troops, right? So you finish off the infantry. Meanwhile, we have a cav line up here playing defense. Again, I've talked about it before. Their sole job is to play defense. So you put a cav line over here in a shield wall, and they absorb arrows while you destroy the enemy force. These Drudziniks here, you can hear their little shields tink tink as the arrows hit them, are excellent on defense. This battle is over, right? 240 of our troops remain, 60 of theirs remain. Now we're going to play this out because I want to talk more about that cavalry and some other concepts, but and we'll suffer some losses here as we close because their archers are going to shoot the whole time. But what we've done here is destroyed the enemy in sequence. We destroyed their horse archers, their cavalry charged in, got blown up, their infantry then got vanquished. Now they're archers, and what we're doing here, of course, is concentrating our forces and taking full advantage of the fact that the AI doesn't attack particularly well with all their units. So they're starting to rout. Now, why do you use cavalry in a shield wall? Because we don't have a lot of cavalry for this setup here. This setup here, we had like 30 Drudziniks, so on defense, anytime you have less cavalry than the enemy does, play defense. All right. Okay, so let's do some Khuzait tactics. This is also likely to be one of your major foes in a Sturgian campaign. They are to the east. It's a certainty that you're going to run up against the Khuzait. So let's show you how to deal with the Khuzait force. I like to run a circle defense with what I call a firing squad. We're basically going to be sheepdogging, herding the enemy horse archers, and I'll show you precisely what we do. Now, this is going to be a simplified version. There are a lot more complex versions of this. We have 2 cavalry lines, a stronger archer line, that is going to be the 5th archers, and then the 4th archers are going to sit in the center of the circle here. This circle defense is something I wish the AI emulated because it's highly effective. Now on the left of our formations here, kind of, if the 5th division was a clock, they'd be pointed towards like 7 o'clock, 7:30. Then the cavalry back a ways there. Now note that that is Jav Cav. Our 3rd division is selected with javelins. The 2nd division that forms the circle in here is higher tier. Again, defense. Now these archers, there's 3 different divisions here. We're going to tell them to stop, which is F1, F6 on a PC. And why would you do that, right? We're doing it with our cavalry here, the Drudziniks in the circle, and these 2 archer divisions. That is because when enemies get destroyed in Bannerlord, when they get killed, the other units will try to reform the formation to make it look like what it used to be. In other words, if you have a huge circle and units start to die, the other units will sort of scurry around to try to make that circle complete. I'd recommend you tell those guys to stop so they don't try to do that. In other words, they will just leave that front of the circle hollow. That's actually to our advantage because the archers will keep shooting and the cavalrymen defend better when they're standing still. Now this cav division, we're going to move up and basically herd the enemy. I've got a great spot here, a commander's position to watch. The firing squad is right above our helmet there. Those archers are our best archers, and because the enemy tends to circle towards the enemy will circle counterclockwise. Usually, this is interesting, they're coming straight up. That still advantages us, right? Because we have a lot of archers shooting and we have a line of shields in front of them. These are the herding dogs, right? I'm going to use them here because the enemy's doing strange stuff. You basically send them in to make that archer line and your cav line that we just sent in look like a V-shaped formation. And what that does, of course, is it pushes the enemy back right into the fire of all those archers. Once they turn around, once the enemy turns around and sort of heads back because they're being attacked, that's another advantage. Your archers are shooting them in the back now. The enemy's doing no damage. And this is also your cue to pull the cavalry out. Why are you doing that? Because if your cavalry go all the way to the other side, your cavalry will get shot, and suddenly the enemy will be taking advantage of that. All right, so we pushed them back. We did major damage to them. You can see we already have a 13-to-1 kill ratio. That's a good start, right? And what we've effectively done is eliminated the fact that they had 20% more troops already. Right? We already have a big advantage here. So again, we're just using this cav division on our left to screen and force the enemy back and forth. We want them doing that. That way they're sort of pressed between our troops. If they don't leave like that, just have your boys charge, right? You can either do a shield wall like this or charge. And what that'll do, of course, is it'll cause serious damage. Now, this is a disaster for the enemy, right? This is really bad AI. They charged our 6 line deep of infantry. Even our little Santa hat guys in here are shooting. And the enemy now is completely mauled, right? All these cavalrymen here are dead men. They can't move. They're getting attacked by hammered, heroic line breakers. They have a small infantry line here, but they're next to die, right? And if this looks similar to the last battle as far as killing units in detail, it's exactly what's going on here, right? First, we killed their horse archers. We demolished their cavalry. Now their infantry is next to get pummeled. Now, again, just like the last battle, out in front, take that circle and now form it into a line. You see all these guys start to scurry forward. I want that circle now to play defense against all their archers. Those archers will do a number on our units here if we don't protect our units. So as our units are finishing off the rest of the forces here, you put that cav line out in front in a shield wall. And it is sacrificial. Those 30 guys, 40 guys are going to get shot, but it's going to buy time for all of our troops here to kill the enemy. That's job number 1. And then move up and kill the archers. These guys here, these Drudziniks, are protecting all the infantry as they move up. You know, a lot of guys want to charge here. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think just move your cavalry up here. Don't get shot in the face. That's not a good strategy. In fact, now the AI is doing dumb shit. It's running backwards with the cavalry for some reason. Well, it doesn't really matter. Now we outnumber the enemy 2-to-1, and even with some terrible AI taking over here, and look at that huge flush of red, we're still going to win. I think we'll fight this again, both to show you the finish of this, also just to show you again, walk you through it. They also didn't go counterclockwise. The horse archers did not act like normal, so this is a good opportunity for us to try it again. Also, I'm not satisfied with those results, even though we had half our force left. Now let's also adjust the army to what I think is more optimal. I think we can get a higher kill ratio here and more success with something that looks like that. I've talked about it before, maybe a few more infantry. 20 to 25% infantry is probably good for Sturgia. And why is the reason for that? Because their infantry sucks. I've done tests. Unfortunately, the new changes that give them hammers don't really make that big of a difference. You're much better off in Bannerlord with more archers and more cavalry for most kingdoms. Let me clarify, right? The Sturgians, definitely that's the case. For the Britannians, no. You want way more infantry and archers, but that's a whole separate episode. In a nutshell, the Britannian cavalry are horrific, right? You don't want to use them. You want to use their tough infantry and archers. All right, so again, just to show you the very subtle details. That 3rd division, you put javelins on there, and that 2nd division, higher tier preference. That's how you separate your Drudziniks from your Sturgian brigands, your hardened brigands, or whatever they're called, the horse raiders. Those are your guys that throw javelins. They're much better attacking. Even though Spear Cavalry got a boost in Bannerlord, for this fight against the Khuzait, against so many charging cavalry, and more importantly, against so many horse archers, I think it's better to have those Drudziniks form that circle. They're still going to be used later in this battle, right? Just like the last battle, we used them towards the end. But note how much we're prioritizing defense. You know, the bottom line is that archers destroy cavalry still if they have, you know, some protection layers, and they're much more useful here on defense. The other thing I said before also applies. If you don't have more cavalry than the enemy, you're better playing defense. The same thing applies to infantry, right? If the enemy has a lot more infantry than you shield wall with your infantry, or you square, right? That's basically, a lot of guys are like, well, when do I attack with infantry? Oh shit, I just fat-fingered a retreat. Everybody stop. We'll be able to fix this. This is the kind of things that happen when you narrate these live. We'll be able to reform this. Just to reiterate that point, say you're being attacked by 300 infantry and you have 100 infantry and a lot of archers. don't attack, right? Those infantrymen should be squared, and hopefully your archers can make the difference. All right, so a huge firing squad this battle, right? We had about half this size of archers. That's going to be incredibly impactful. And the horse archers are circling counterclockwise here, so we're going to be able to show this like a normal battle. Here they come, and they're walking right into the trap. Now, notice the angle here. These horses are kind of, in fact, I'm going to send them further. You want to send them towards the left here. That way it forces the enemy out. If you send them towards the right, they'll circle your cavalry, and you'll have a problem. Make sure you err towards the side I am. In other words, you want your cavalry pushing them between your troops, right? Your archers on the other side. Now, at this stage, it's best just to pull back. I like to have the cavalry follow for about 10 seconds on the charge, just enough to push the enemy out, and then I'll have them reset. All right, so archers in the center here, and these are our weakest archers, our little Santa hat motherfuckers. The enemy cav is charging. What are they charging, right? They're charging our squared infantry. Let's try a little variation of this. We'll pull the archers back into the side. The infantry is going to go crazy on their cavalry. Over here, our herding dogs do exactly what they're supposed to, right? And they even gave them some javelins there. One for the road, you bitches, as the horse archers melt. And the death spam is incredibly green. Right? This example is definitely more successful than the first. Of course, I got to stay on my feet. That's high on the list of priorities in a Bannerlord battle. Make sure you don't go down. If you're going down, the AI takes over, and we know what happens. Not good things. All right, so they're bringing in a bunch of infantry here, and they're sort of to the cav side. Let's bring this cav line up to attack those infantrymen. That leaves our archers to deal with horse archers, but we already mentioned that. As long as you have a good amount of high-level archers with their feet planted, they will massacre horse archers. Crossbow does even better, of course. I've mentioned that a lot on the channel, but if you have crossbow here, those horse archers will insta-die. All right, looks good here in the center. Their infantry and cavalry is all but destroyed. Now, their horse archers are sort of menacing us because we didn't apply as much attention to them as we normally do. Here comes our cavalry, though, right? We've talked about it before. They get formed out in front in a shield wall line. That is to allow the rest of our troops to move up. Think about it from an NFL football perspective. They're the offensive line. They go towards the front. Your Drauziniks have the best armor, best horse, best survivability of all the Sturgians. So naturally, them out front means the rest of our troops can kind of hide behind them as we close the vise. Now you can see the enemy's fucked here, right? They only have an archer line. We have most of our troops are left. Now they're going to inflict some damage here because their archers are sort of resolutely holding out here. They can't win this, and a lot of times they will rout in this situation, but because they were shooting this whole time that we're closing, you can see the death spam. How many times have I talked about it? Archers are nasty in Bannerlord. Tail Worlds somewhat inexplicably made archers even stronger with the 1.32 change. They're even more accurate, which is a little perplexing because they were already pretty OP. Now again, cavalry is better, so that does help. And cavalry in the open do maul archers, but having archers in your army is key. Again, almost 40%, 45% is what I would recommend for the Sturgians, and this army composition did the trick nicely. A little bit of deaths at the end here, a little bit messy, but better than the first battle, and I would bet we have 170, 160 troops left. Again, a resounding success. We're outnumbered 20%. Our little Santa hat guys come running up here and do the rest. And 170 survivors here, so something like 60% of our forces survived and blew out a force where we were heavily outnumbered. All right, we are going to do another Sturgian tactics guide covering 1.32, covering the strengths and weaknesses of the Sturgians. I'm doing a lot of testing, so you want to subscribe if you want to see more from that. Please hit that like button on the way out, friends. I appreciate you folks. With all that said, I will see you, friends, next time.